All right, so apparently, Proxies, EO has made a video, and he's going to go ahead and from the title of it, there is one thing apparently that is killing the Zenless Zone Zero's unique identity. I would like to hear about it. I would like to see it. I'm not sure if you guys are interested or not, but I feel that EO is a person that is very knowledgeable in Zenless Zone Zero. Okay? I do feel that this is a man that does have the credentials to talk about Zenless Zone Zero. And whether or not you agree or you disagree with his takes, EO is another person that does represent the ZZZ community. Now, I know that it is strived around that EO is a elitist of sorts. I don't find he is. I just find that EO is a person that quote unquote gets lost in the sauce sometimes, but overall is a really cool dude and does make valid and fair points. Sometimes even I can criticize some of his points, and I like to see, because apparently I saw that someone posted it in my Discord, this video in particular, and left a certain comment in the Discord that I feel that they just meant that they disagreed with it. So I'm not going to spoil myself with what else they have to say about it. I'm just going to go ahead and react to it and see what happens. But I just wanted to put that little disclaimer up first before we dive into the video. You're looking to snag that next S rank agent on your account, but yet you're out of polychromes and you're about to blow some cash on the in-store shop for some monochromes? Hold up before you top up. If you're playing Zenless Zone Zero, Genshin Impact, Honkai Star Rail, or any gacha game that empties your wallet, LDSHOP's got your back. With LDSHOP, not only you're just topping up, but you're saving money. 27% compared to the in-game store prices. That means more rolls, more chances for your dream agent, and way less pain on your bank account. And the best part? It's fast, it's safe, it's secure. No sketchy logins, no endless waiting. Just pick your game, choose your amount, pay, and boom. Your credits to the account before your pity counter even starts sweating. And here's the kicker for all my viewers out there. You'll save even more with the link down in the description below. So whether you're pulling for Orphe, Lucia, or one of those agents that, you know, RNG keeps teasing you with, don't let the in-game store rob you blind. Top smarter. Save yourself right now by using LDSHOP down in the link below. Alrighty, let's see what's going on with EO. Turn the volume up, and let's hit play.
Go baby, what's good guys? Yoku here, and a viewer asked me a random question while I was on stream right before I started watching the Yojimbo video. So this video that you're watching is actually like a segment to that, because I kind of ranted for like 10 minutes. I don't know how I did that, but it's me. I do those kind of things. Anyway, the video topic in question is basically Zenless Zone Zero is kind of like losing its identity. Kinda is a stretch, but I feel this way. I go over why I feel this way. There's a couple different things we talk about, but at the end of the day, this is pretty much something that I feel like we can use as a means of talking about what used to be, if that makes sense. Also, this is a way bigger problem, and at this point, I think it is a problem. I've been sitting on this for like the last month and a half, really, and it's going on 2 months by this point. By the time November gets here, it'll be about 2 months that I've been thinking about this. I've been resonating with this, and I do feel like at some conclusion, Zenless is kind of falling off. Not as a game. I don't think Zenless itself is falling off as a game because the player count is growing. I think the interest is dying out. But again, that's a whole different video that we'll talk about. This video is kind of like a little bit of a teaser, if you will, like a micro section to talking about that. But once I get back, I'm leaving for DreamHack. So by the time you watch this video, this entire week, I'm just gone. I'm just not here. So whatever day this gets uploaded, I won't be here until the next week after it gets uploaded. But once we get back, I'll be on stream. We'll talk about everything, and I'll see you then. All right, cool. Bye. Mal, you said, I think too many people are obsessed or too focused on endgame. I see where you're coming from, too. I feel like maybe it's fair to say that there are two different groups, or a couple different groups, right? So you have the group that's focused on endgame because that's what they're playing a lot of. And then I think you have the group that's not really focused on endgame. They're focused on the game as a whole. So the events, the story, new characters, new side quests, things like that. And they're having a little bit more fun with the game overall. There is something that we could talk about, which I feel like would be its own video in a sense, but I do think low key, high key, I think Zenless has lost its essence. I think the
Loki Ike. Okay. Just to talk about really quickly, one of the points here he's kind of made is like he thinks that there is like, you know, people who's really into the end game, there's people who's into the story, into the characters, and yeah. You got different types of players when it comes to communities. This is why it's a community. Not sure. Look, I'm going to bring in fighting games, like since it's EO, I'm going to bring in a fighting game and a fighting game situation into this, and I'm going to explain it like this with the FGC. Has anyone ever watched the original trailer for Street Fighter V, where it's actually a speech that's going in that's talking about the player? It's talking about the artist. It's talking about the casual fan. It's talking about the viewer. It's talking about, in general, every single demographic that is involved with Street Fighter and how each one of these people, that whether they're a competitive player, whether they're a casual player, whether they're just a viewer, whether they're just an artist, whether they're a person who makes merchandise, doesn't matter. These are all different demographics that come together as a whole that builds the community. And I feel like when that video came out, you can take that representation to any video game. You can take it to ZZZ. You can take it to Weather and Waves. You can take it to so many different links. So to be like, anyone who ever would question that, like, I'm going to say 100%, not 90%, not 80%, 100%. I am pretty sure there is some people out there who don't even play Zenless Zone Zero, that likes to watch other people play Zenless Zone Zero, that likes the characters, who are probably on Twitter, who draw the characters. And that's kind of like your artists. There's different demographics in a community, and they're just as important in that community as the player themselves.
Identity that Zenless had as its game, not before the end game, right? As a game, I think Zenless has slowly lost that. And some things, sometimes it feels like they're bringing it back, and then other times it just feels like it's just non-existent. What do I mean by that? Okay, so one of the things in the beginning, very early on, was the comic book style of storytelling, but more importantly was the persona-like vibe, right? Being able to grab a character and you walk the city with them. They were showing that off a lot early on in Zenless's lifespan, or the launch of Zenless, right? The wonkiness or the wackiness, just it was much more comic book cartoony feel, with a little bit of persona mixed in there, in terms of like being able to use social ranks and what you said or did with certain characters would improve them or their relationship with you. There was a lot that made Zenless, at its identity, at its core, a game that would be more interesting to casually play and have in game for it, right? So you kind of crush both of them that way. As of recent, and by recent, this has been patches worth, right? As of late, it feels like none of that is here anymore. You know, we've been begging them to bring back this camera event, this new camera event, just because it's super fun. It comes with all kinds of crazy animations or stills that we can make from the pictures. And I'm almost positive they're gonna take it away again. Like, they're gonna make it limited. They're not gonna keep it permanent. And it's like, you should just make this a permanent thing in the game. The arcade mode, we haven't gotten a new arcade mode in, correct me if I'm wrong, chat, I don't think we've gotten a new arcade mode since, wasn't it Lighter? When Lighter's little event got here, maybe a little bit after Lighter, that's when we got that. I don't think we've gotten a new arcade game since. Same thing with the Fall Guys event, right? I think Fall Guys itself is permanent, like they added it to the permanent event, but there's nothing new about it. You have an entire game put inside of Zenless Zone Zero.
The Fall Guy event's not permanent, because if it'd be permanent, I would be playing the hell out of that. So this is kind of concerning if he doesn't know that. When it comes down to like what he's talking about so far with like the arcade and everything else, I will basically put out like this, that me personally, I think the arcade was cool and everything else, but straight up, like, I don't really, never really cared for it, even when Zenless first dropped and it was there. It wasn't something that kept my attention. The comic books stuff, like, the comic book cinematics and everything that he's talking about and different things like that. We do know that, like, 2.0, they did have that taken away, but I think that was also something that some people have made expressions they didn't quite like that either. And I think that, like, one of the main reasons why 2.0 in the beginning was feeling a little mid was because they can take that type of style to animate and put comic book structures and everything for a lot of the black screens with white text scenario. But I do believe at the same point in time, there's a lot more that's involved in that we probably don't really realize. And that's why it's a little bit more limited than what it does appear that it used to be like in 1.0's story. So let's let the man cook. Let me hear more.
And I know this is a little like side tangent or whatever at the beginning. I apologize for those that are watching this video, but this is some stuff that I do kind of want to just bring out so that you guys are more aware of where I stand with the game right now. Bizarre Brigade multiplayer was the last arcade event that we got. When was that? After Lighter? That might have been after Lighter, but we haven't gotten anything since, and I know it's been months. So if that's the case, you have an arcade mode. I've talked about this before, where like the arcade mode is basically a cheat code. No other game has this arcade mode. The only thing that's closest to it now is Genshin Impact's Astra Wonderland, the UGC mode that they just released. That's the closest thing that any other gacha game has to an arcade mode, or the arcade mode for Zenless Zone Zero. And unfortunately, Zenless isn't taking advantage of that at all. Arcade would be something that you could easily get so many people interested in just by taking other games. Dig Dug, that's really some old people shit, right? 70s, 80s, whatever. But Dig Dug, something a little bit more modern, is a Pokemon style game. If you don't want to do that, you have Mega Man. I talk about that all the time, right? Any of the Mega Mans, Battle Network, ZX, Mega Man X, or just base Mega Man, so Rockman. You could take anything, the concept alone, and you just slap it in the game. Beat 'em ups, right? In the Ninja Turtles game, Power Rangers, you could literally turn that into all the Zenless characters. You could make it into a beat 'em up. And then we already have co-op. That's the only form of co-op in the game, is through the arcade, right? You could quite literally take that same thing and then put the Zenless characters in the game. Imagine if they made a game called The Cunning Hare's Escape, or Trouble in New Iridu City, and the 4 characters that you had to play with would be Nekomata, Billy, Anby, and Nicole. Boom, Ninja Turtle style.
I get what his point is. But I'm gonna have to say that I wouldn't want like the Cunning Hare's Escape, because I feel like that would ruin the aesthetic of ZZZ even worse if you're trying to go that route. Because, like, I'll put it like this: they would have to come up with something more original naming wise. You don't throw Miyabi, you don't throw the Cunning Hares into an arcade game per se, because they are there playing the arcade game. Like, it's kind of like mostly for like your dating scenario to get, when you're going to pull a character, which originally he was talking about this anyway, where he was like, hey, like how they were personifying the game and everything. Well, you can still do that. And arcade is one of the things where you go grab, like, if, like, for example, with Monoto, in order to get the wallpaper for Monoto, I had to go play an arcade game. But none of the arcade games, they're not really that interesting. And personally, I mean, to be quite honest, it would be cool if they did some new stuff, like they would put like an actual, maybe like fighting game or something, but I'm okay with where it's at right now. What I would like to see ZZZ do more is do things with the Bang Boos. I was talking about this with Kete before, is like, what if you actually, did like crossovers if you could with some companies, and instead of putting like Akuma or Chang Li, for example, from Street Fighter, if you did a collaboration with Street Fighter, you made Bang Boos of Street Fighter characters, and you had like a mini little event that was in there that was a fighting game event that you played as the Bang Boo version of Ryu, Ken, Akuma, like, I don't know. Like, the arcade wise, I don't think it's that big of a deal. I really don't think the arcade's that big of a deal. I don't think it's that popular. I could be wrong. Maybe you guys will correct me right here, in the chat, that the arcade is like the best thing there is. But like, I don't hear no one talking about the arcade of Zenless because, in all honesty, it's just, even when it was first out, it was like, hey, it's pretty cool. It's got some mini games in it, but I'm not here for these mini games. I'm here to play, in the hollow. I'm here to play Zenless Zone Zero. Another reason why TV mode was regarded as probably a bad design choice was because you felt like you were stuck sitting there playing these mini games when all you really want to do is use the character you pulled on a banner. You want to play the story and you want to go into action. You want to get into the action of the game. So I kind of feel like arcade is just another version of TV mode where some people are going to like it, but probably the mass majority of players just don't care.
Power Ranger style, like old, PlayStation 1, right? Or SNES style gameplay, and we recently have some of these games being remade, but that's not really the most important thing. Point being is that you've seen a beat 'em up game before, 4 characters on the screen, just like Streets of Rage, which we've already seen that with the lighter stuff. Streets of Rage, boom, and then you just go around beating crap up. And you have little stages or modes in the game that would absolutely work. It keeps players' attention. They don't have to sit here and play this shit for 20 hours a day, but it lets them play something that's not just, hey, let's go do end game, hey, let's do story, whatever. That is so important, not to every gacha game, but specifically to Zenless, because they have the ability to do it and they have the connection, just like I talk about with the fighting game stuff, right, guys? Oh, Capcom has this. They have access to Capcom. They have direct communication with Capcom, blah, 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 blah. All they have to do is borrow. And you might think to yourself, oh, well, that's not true, or like they can't easily do that. They've been doing it since the beta. Like, Nicole has the 360 input. Bon Yu, I'm not going to talk about the leaks, but Bon Yu has motion inputs, and he has light, medium, and heavy combos or attacks to make combos. He has different, the character is literally a fighting game character. Like, and unless they take it away, you're not gonna hear me shut up. I'm gonna keep repeating that. Same thing with Lighter. They just did that. Literally, Lighter had a beat 'em up stage, the Streets of Rage or whatever it was that he had. They had that for Lighter's little event. It was that thing. Githari with the hammer. She has Monster Hunter animations from the hammer. That is from Capcom. Like, bar for one, you can go and look at it. Boom, it's right there. The same thing happened with Seth. Seth has the same things with the Charge Blade.
Well, when it comes to the Monster Hunter stuff, that's inspiration, right? Yeah, and I get what he's saying. I get what he's saying, that they have the ability to do all this kind of stuff and everything else. But I'm also going to say that, dare I say, do we want Zenless to be Wuthering Waves? Because like right now, Wuthering Waves has like Vampire Survivors. They having really last couple of events. It doesn't feel like woo-wah. And this kind of doesn't, to me, seems like it was incorporating the thought process of what Zenless really is. This is like, no offense, it's just criticism on that part. I think that if Zenless were to do anything in particular that would constitute to have more people wanting to come in and play it for hours on top of hours, if you want to incorporate something, that is a actual proper co-op network mode. Either co-op or PvP. Like EO, I think that he should be able to agree with this, is that one thing that would really keep like his interest, I would be sure of, and mine, and I even believe to many players out there, is this is something that I've talked about. If Zenless Zone Zero did like an arena, and you're able to go into it where you pick your 3 characters, your opponent, the person who you're playing, your friend, whoever on the server picks their 3 characters, and you're playing together on the same server and such, that you actually have a way of doing a PvP mode where you're fighting one another, and you can just continuously do this, and you have like a ranking system and everything else. The same concept as a crappy gacha game like Devil May Cry Peak of Combat, where your quote unquote your mindscapes, your sequences don't matter, your weapon don't matter, your build don't matter. You're playing as a basic level character, and you're playing PvP. You're playing Virgil against Dante, Nero against Virgil, whatever, in a PvP arena. If they would incorporate something like that into the game, that right there would drastically be something I would feel would be unique enough that would keep interest of people to want to continue coming in, playing, and being part of that. At the same point in time, if you don't even incorporate a PvP mode, a PvE mode where you could co-op, where, hey, make it to where I can invite my friends, I can invite 2 other people who can control different characters, even if you want to keep it as a swap in a swap out scenario like Dragon Ball FighterZ did, to where we're going to go fight a big bad boss, and I fight, and then when I get like low health or whatever, I can swap over, or we're going to work together on our rotations, and we're going to work together as a team to kick in our friend into the middle of the battle, to where some things like this, I feel, would actually be better to incorporate in the game, that would give it longevity and would actually maintain more of a retention span for both older and newer players. Doing something like updating the arcade, putting these events like the beat 'em up and everything else where it's PvE and a single player, these aren't things that I would suggest to be permanent events or to add more into arcade or anything. Like, it would be great if they did, probably, it'd be really great if they did for the players who would want it, but I don't think the mass majority of players would want that. I think that they would want something that feels more substantial. So let them continue.
And whatnot, all of it goes into there. So it's like, it's a really good, the opportunity is there. That's basically what I'm trying to say. Anyway, let's actually jump into the vid. Or at this point, I mean, I feel like low key that might just, this is 8 minutes. This might just be its own video. I apologize of how it started off. So I'm legit. So what we're gonna do for the remainder of this video that you guys are watching right now, we're gonna yap for like 2 more minutes so that ads go away and that everyone on stream who's watching this can actually enjoy the Yojimbo section that we're getting ready to go into. But that's kind of it. I guess I'll open up the floor with Q&As. Not a fighting game character, hack and slash. Yeah, honestly, Nix, I could take that too, right? Like, it doesn't really matter to me what we call Ban Yu whenever he does come out. The point being is that he has notable things that exist from both aspects that we could easily associate with. When do you think? Okay,
I think he's just going to be yapping for 2 minutes. So I think it's a good spot to stop this edit right here. Really quickly, I do want to add this because, like, when I first came into Zenless Zone Zero, I also kind of referred to it as fighting game mechanics in a game, and then I changed it to where it was more. Did I change that synopsis? Because here's a thing of why I will say that this game has fighting game mechanics. Okay, and it's not wrong and it's not right. And I understand when people say, no, it's a hack and slash and not a fighting game. Both answers, I think, are correct in the terms of what Zenless is doing. Because in general, fighting games, hack and slashes have the same type of system to a certain degree. It is more resource management than it's actually just bursting. What I'd like to really say is that a lot of fighting games has tried to do the approach. A lot of fighting game developers have tried to do this approach. If you've ever played like Tekken, if you ever played like Guilty Gear and different anime fighters and such, one thing that they'd like to try to incorporate and they like to try to do spin-offs on sometimes, and it always seems to fail, but they're trying to find a medium to make this work, is they want to make a beat-em-up game that is a fighting game. And that's where I feel like what Zenless Zone Zero has accomplished. It has accomplished the genre of a beat-em-up arena, 3D arena-based game that incorporates resource management that you would find in a fighting game. You would also find this in a hack and slash game. It is taking basically both of best worlds and throwing it in and mashing it into one, to which a lot of games, like if you ever played like Tekken 5 and you tried doing its arena story mode with the fighting game, how horrible that felt, how Guilty Gear tried doing Guilty Gear Azuka, how bad that felt, how Guilty Gear even went to Guilty Gear 2 to even try to create a MOBA with fighting game mechanics, how bad that felt. ZZZ, I think, absolutely has taken a very big inspiration from fighting games, but has in general found a way to casualize it enough to make it to where it fits into a 3D arena hack and slash world. That's why, like, I will say with EO that I do agree with his takes, but at the same point in time, I do understand when people don't understand that, what he's getting at and what he's talking about, because they see, well, no, it's not a fighting game, it's a hack and slash game. You're correct. You're 100% correct. It's not a fighting game. But the same resources, the same styling that you see in a fighting game, the mechanics behind how Street Fighter works can be applied into hack and slash games. Vice versa, what's you can apply from a hack and slash game can be applied into Street Fighter. And I think ZZZ has incorporated both of those with traditional RPG elements such as your builds and everything, and has created, in my personal opinion, the best beat 'em up game there is. Like, this is, to me, a 3D version of Streets of Rage that is done correctly. So, just wanted to say that really quickly, really shortly. But in general, I will say that I don't think, like, the arcade not being updated, them not doing like the beat 'em up stages and the different little events is killing Zenless Zone Zero's unique identity. To be quite honest with you, I think that Zenless Zone Zero's unique identity when it first came out was the TV mode that no one liked. And ever since that got ripped out of the game has been relatively, I'll say it like this. This is a hot take that I'll give. Ever since TV mode has been ripped out of the game, and I'm a person who does not like TV mode either, okay? Don't get me wrong. That was the moment where Zenless pretty much lost footing on how its identity is supposed to be placed. This is where, when they had to restructure the game since they removed the TV mode, they lost their identity, and now they're trying to reshape and rehash a new identity. And this is why, like, 2.0's got its hurdles. It's got its ups and downs. But in general, they're working to find a sweet spot that works for Zenless, that the mass majority of players are going to like. And this is what the same situation that's going on apparently with Arknight's Infield. They're taking things that was going to create its identity and they're translating it over because the mass majority of the casual player base does not like it. So that's my take. That's what I have to say. Whether you agree or disagree on that one, That's just what I think. So otherwise that, I'll leave it there. Keep it classic, keep it jazzy, always keep it real, and we will see you in the next video on the channel.